Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. If you hear my voice, say hello, friends. Absolutely. It is so wonderful to see you all today. We're going to go ahead and get started. So if you want to take your seats. Oh, we have a lot to do today. It's going to be a great celebration. Awesome. Well, hello, friends. It's good to see you. Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Renee Willis. I am the interim president and CEO of the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Thank you. Thank you, Moises. And it's so good to see familiar faces and friends and also new faces and faces that I've seen many times before. But it is good to be in community with you this evening. So we are here tonight actually, for our 42nd Annual Leadership Awards reception. Who's excited about that? It truly is an honor to gather with so many dedicated advocates and leaders and change makers in the fight for housing justice. So thank you for being here this evening. So tonight we're going to celebrate the exceptional individuals who have spent their lives advancing solutions to the housing crisis. And they have been fighting for the rights of people with low incomes and ensuring that everyone, regardless of their income, regardless of their background or circumstances, have a safe, stable, accessible, affordable home. And this evening is a night for reflection. It's an evening for recognition. And most importantly, inspiration. And with that, we are here to honor 4 outstanding individuals who tirelessly work to transform lives, to strengthen communities, and to move the needle on affordable housing. So the Edward W. Brooke Award for Housing Leadership, it's named after or for the late Senator Brooke of Massachusetts. He championed low-income housing both in the Senate and later as chair of the NLIC Board of Directors. And it recognizes an exemplary housing leader at the national level. The Cushing-Niles Award, Lifetime Service Award, named after NLIC's late founder, recognizes an individual whose long-standing commitment to affordable housing has shaped and strengthened the movement over time. The Sheila Crowley Housing Justice Award, named after NLIC's former president and CEO, honors a leader. Sheila Crowley is in the house, so it's great to have Sheila with us. And it honors a leader who has elevated the conversation around affordable housing and its critical role in the country. And finally, our newest award, the Lorraine Brown Resident Leader Award, named for our board member, Lorraine Brown, who is also in the house, recognizes a person living in substandard housing who has worked to uplift their community and to fight for tenant protections and advocate for those experiencing homelessness. Each of these awards presents the legacy of leaders who have paved the way for more, but more importantly, they highlight the ongoing work that must continue. So tonight, we honor these 4 individuals, not just for what they have accomplished, but for the fire that they ignite in all of us. To push forward, to advocate harder, and to keep building a movement that will not rest until housing is recognized as a human right for everyone. So let's celebrate their leadership, their dedication, and the power of this movement. And thank you all for being here tonight, and for the commitment to this fight, and for standing in solidarity for those who need us most. Let's begin the celebration. And with that, I'll call up Ann Mavity. Please join on the stage.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ann Mavity, and I am the Executive Director of the Minnesota Housing Partnership, MHP. And I'm also a proud member of the National Low-Income Housing Coalition Board of Directors. The Edward Brooke Award, as we heard, the Housing Leadership Award, it is named for the late Edward Brooke, the senator from Massachusetts, and really is to honor national leaders who have shown tremendous advocacy and fight and fire for affordable housing across this country. And so I am absolutely honored today to announce that this year's recipient is my own Minnesota U.S. Senator, Tina Smith, who is with us today. And for all of you who have not had the honor to see her in action and all the amazing work that she does, we're going to see a video and then we'll make the award.
The National Low-Income Housing Coalition is pleased to present the 2025 Edward W. Brooke Housing Leadership Award to Senator Tina Smith for exemplary leadership of fighting for affordable housing on the national level. Tina Smith serves as a U.S. Senator of Minnesota and as chair of the Housing, Transportation, and Community Development Subcommittee of the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. In her role as ranking member, she has worked across the aisle to improve access to safe, decent, and affordable housing in communities across the nation, including in rural and tribal areas. She has introduced bold, visionary legislation, including the Housing for All Veterans Act, which would expand rental assistance to all low-income veterans, putting our nation on a path to universal rental assistance for all in need. Born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Tina lived in several states before attending Stanford University. At 19, she worked on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline to fund her college education. Early in her career, Tina worked at General Mills, became an entrepreneur, and was appointed to serve as an executive at Planned Parenthood. Believing in politics as a tool to improve lives, Tina became involved in local campaigns, even taking her children in a stroller to talk to voters. Senator Smith led the development and introduction of the bipartisan Rural Housing Service Reform Act, which would help preserve the affordability of hundreds of thousands of homes across rural America. Senator Smith led the passage of her Tribal Access to Homeless Assistance Act, which gives tribes access to federal funding to address homelessness, and the Native American Housing Affordability Act to improve processing times for Native American mortgage borrowers using the Section 184 Indian Home Loan Guarantee Program. She's also raised awareness of predatory land contracts, or contracts for deed, and introduced the bipartisan Preserving Pathways to Home Ownership Act to protect consumers. Tina listens to Minnesotans and works to turn their concerns into laws. She has passed over 70 bills benefiting families, farmers, veterans, businesses, and tribal communities. Her bipartisan approach has improved healthcare, expanded broadband, and supported housing and education. She's also a progressive leader fighting for racial justice, women's rights, and clean energy. Tina's work to help establish Juneteenth as a national holiday and provided a path to citizenship for Minnesota's Liberian community. Nearly 4 decades after moving to Minnesota, Tina now serves as a U.S. Senator, a role that she loves. Tina and her husband Archie have 2 sons, 3 grandsons, 1 granddaughter, and a chocolate lab named Moose. For her unwavering housing and racial justice leadership on behalf of tribal, rural, and other marginalized communities, NLIHC is honored to present the 2025 Edward W. Brooke Housing Leadership Award to Senator Tina Smith.
So, thank you. So, clearly you can see that from everything Tina's done, or Senator Smith has done on behalf of housing, she's been doing it for decades in Minnesota. And one of the things I particularly appreciate, Senator Smith served as chief of staff for the Minneapolis mayor, for the governor and his lieutenant governor, and she knows the details. She knows how all of these complex systems work. And so we know that we can rely on her to help solve so many of these challenges that we're that we're facing. And so in appreciation on behalf of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, I would love to award to you
thank
the
you.
Edward Brooke Leadership Award.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll just put this right here. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you very much for that lovely video. And I can't wait until I tell my husband, Archie, that Moose was featured in a video in Washington, D.C., because he personally believes that Moose is not appreciated nearly enough. And so that was really just so lovely. Thank you all very much. And thank you for your kind words. I don't know if everyone is noticing Anne's shoes today, but I want to just pay special tribute to your shoes. I know. I know. Anne and I have known one another for a long time, since when we both were involved in local politics in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, when you were on the city council. And so it feels like a wonderful full circle moment to be here with you today. And to Renee and there you are, Renee and the National Low Income Housing Coalition, you are such champions. You are champions for families and people all across this country who want what every human being wants, which is a safe, dignified, affordable place to call home. That is the most fundamental of human desires, I think, along with, and not just desire, but need. And it is a human right to have a roof over your head, a place of privacy and dignity. And you do that every day. You uplift the voices of people who aren't always heard in the halls of power and influence. And you are representing and doing the best, the research, the policy, all of the work that you do is just so inspirational to me, and also just a huge help to me and my staff as we have worked so hard to put together these pieces of legislation over the last many years. So I want to just a huge thank you. And now I have a question. Is there anyone in this room who is, in addition to everything that you do in your life, is there anybody in this room who is a public servant for the United States government, or who works with a public servant for the federal government of the United States of America? Is there anybody in this room who is that? Okay, I want to just thank you. I want to thank you for your service. I want to let you know how much I respect the work that you do, and how important I believe what you do is to make life better for people in this country. And at a time when I feel like people who are serving our country as a federal government employee is not getting the respect that you deserve, I want you to know that I respect you. And I am not the only one. So, if you'll indulge me, I just want to say a few words before I wait to see who are the other lucky recipients of your awards. I started out where I always start out in this conversation, which is that everybody deserves the freedom and the opportunity to build the lives that they want, and the foundation to that is having a roof over your head, a safe place to sleep, the dignity and the privacy of a home, and that is a human right. And yet we know that millions of our friends and neighbors and family members struggle to find and to keep a home. This is true in big cities, it's true in small towns, it is true in suburbs, it is true all over the place. And we know that we have a crisis of a shortage of housing in this country that ripples through the lives of millions of Americans. And we also know that this is a solvable problem. This is not something that has happened that we have no control over. We are actually choosing, too many people are choosing not to take control over it. The shortage of housing, the shortage of affordable housing in this country is a mistake of design, and we can fix it. And that is what I know you focus on every single day. We know this because we can see where the hard work of the people in this room and people all over this country is bearing fruit. We can see it when we look at what happens when we update old and outdated zoning laws, which make it hard to build the homes that people can afford to live in. I see this in my own hometown of Minneapolis, and we understand that those old and outdated zoning laws are the legacy of redlining and discrimination that was part of the design of our government, that some people needed to live in some places while other people lived in different, often better places. We can fix that. We know how to fix that. And in fact, in communities across this country, that is happening. We also know that when we make targeted investments in housing vouchers, as another example, and we get those vouchers into the hands of people, and we then surround them with the other services that they need to get their lives stable, that works to address the challenge of homelessness. We got to have a place for them to live. This is a housing supply issue, but we know what to do. And in fact, in my home state of Minnesota and places all over the country, when it comes to veterans homelessness, we've been able to demonstrate how we can make a huge impact. We can reduce veterans homelessness. I want to say that we need to be clear-eyed about this and not think that this is a problem that is out of our control, or that there are things that we cannot do. And we also need to be, I believe, clear-eyed about what is happening here in Washington right now. I appreciate so much the common sense and the bipartisanship of this organization, and I appreciate the work that you are doing to try to drive that home in this moment, when I think it is also true that there are people in this town and this administration that are trying to dismantle the housing programs and the work that we have all done to address the core challenges of a lack of affordable housing. And so our work is not done. We have so much left to do, and I want you to know I am full of the energy to get this work done. Are you ready to? Because it's easy to do this work when everything is easy, but now is our moment to remind people. Now is our moment to drive this issue home, to make sure that the people that you work with every single day are remembered and seen as the big decisions that are going to be made in Congress in the coming months are part of their thinking. We cannot let them not see the people that are the heart of this country, the hardworking people, the people who are working so hard to make their lives work. And as a country, we understand that we have solidarity. We come together on these issues. We don't divide, we come together, and that is what you do. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so honored by this recognition. So keep strong, let's keep working, and we will prevail. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Good evening. My name is Moises Losa. That's my cousin. I'm a proud and original member of the Board of Directors of the National Low Income Housing Coalition. This year's recipient of the Cushing-Niles Dolbear Lifetime Service Award is Mac McCrite. The Cushing-Niles Dolbear Lifetime Achievement Award is named after NLIHC's late founder, who has been referred to as the godmother of the affordable housing movement. The award goes to an individual who has demonstrated an unyielding commitment to achieving safe, decent, and affordable homes for low-income people over a long period of time. Could you see the tape, please?
National Low Income Housing Coalition is pleased to present the 2025 Cushing-Niles-Delaware Lifetime Service Award to Mac McCrate for unyielding commitment to achieving safe, decent, and affordable homes for low-income people. Mac McCrate has dedicated more than 40 years of work in legal services, primarily at Greater Boston Legal Services in Boston, Massachusetts, until his retirement in 2022. Over the course of his career, Mac gained extensive experience in housing court and has an encyclopedic knowledge of public and subsidized housing programs, affordable housing policies, and housing-related court decisions. He shares his knowledge with legal services attorneys around the country via the Housing Justice Network listserv. Mac has also dedicated countless hours to educating other legal services attorneys and has provided training and written materials for organizations such as the National Housing Law Project. Since 2022, Mac has continued as an Access to Justice volunteer with the Greater Boston Legal Services Housing Unit, focusing on public housing redevelopment work with tenant organizations and the Boston Housing Authority's Resident Advisory Board. Mac served in many roles with the Greater Boston Legal Services, including managing, senior, and lead attorney for their housing and homelessness units. Mac has worked on legislation to improve state eviction protections and enhance previous rent and eviction control laws, and was instrumental in test cases on the state's right to shelter and ending delays in tenant election appeals. In 1999, Mac began his work with the Boston Housing Authority Resident Advisory Board, which has continued for over 25 years. Mac has always valued the It Takes a Village approach in legal aid and housing advocacy, and continues to actively volunteer with a host of housing and resident groups. For his lifelong work, commitment, and impact in advancing housing justice, NLIHC is honored to present the 2025 Cushing-Niles-Delaware Lifetime Service Award to Mac McCrate.
On behalf of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, it is my honor to present the Cushing-Niles-Delaware Lifetime Service Award to Mac McCrate in his unyielding commitment to advancing housing justice. And as you can see, you don't have to be old to get this award.
I'm going to cite somebody who is not a role model of mine, but I heard about this the other day when somebody else was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. And they were talking about how Clint Eastwood, when he was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, said, "I'm not stopping." And I think that's an important message for all of us, but I wanted to start with the idea of what's in a name. So right before I came up here, Moises and I were joking about the fact of, like, why didn't I have a simple last name like his name or his first name? You know, why did you have to trip over the name? And I know you've got the same issue with the National Low Income Housing Coalition. It's like everybody trips over that all the time. They get it confused with the Low Income Housing Tax Credit and, you know, like things like that. We used to have the same problem in legal services. We had this thing that was formed a long time ago called LALSHAC, which was a loose association of legal services, housing advocates, and clients. Would like talk about a mouthful. Nobody could ever get that one out. And I know those of us who are doing homeless advocacy said, can we be No Shack? That's at least simpler. But then, of course, in their infinite wisdom, they became the Housing Justice Network, and we have all benefited from being part of that network for a long time, where people are sharing their stories, sharing their experiences, sharing a wealth of knowledge and growth throughout the country, throughout our localities. It's been a real pleasure to be part of that support network. The same thing is true with the Resident Advisory Board. Shout out to the Boston residents who are here today. and both present and former Boston Housing Authority residents who are here today. And I also want to speak to the fact that collaboration is important and fighting for justice is important. So earlier this evening, I saw my former colleague, Rod Solomon, who I worked with for years when the Boston Housing Authority was in receivership, and we were getting that out of receivership, and that was a very fruitful collaboration, and that collaboration with the Boston Housing Authority has been a good one over quite a number of years, trying to develop tenants' rights, tenant protections, create models for the future. Obviously, we have some real struggles with justice right now. But as Clint Eastwood said earlier, we're not stopping. Thank you very much.
Got to break up some of that northern flair now for some southern hospitality. I'm just joking. Not really, but. I'm Dr. Bambi Hayes Brown, President and CEO of Georgia Advancing Communities Together. And MAC, we call it Georgia ACT for short because that's a long name to say. And I am the newly elected chair of the National Low Income Housing Coalition Board of Directors. And this year's recipient of the Sheila Crowley Housing Justice Award is none other than Susan Thomas. The Sheila Crowley Housing Justice Award is named for the former National Low Income Housing Coalition President and CEO, Sheila Crowley, who led this wonderful organization for more than 17 years. The Crowley Award goes to an outstanding leader who has elevated the conversation around affordable housing for the lowest of income people in America. Video, please.
The National Low Income Housing Coalition is pleased to present the 2025 Sheila Crowley Housing Justice Award to Susan Thomas for elevating the conversation around affordable housing for the lowest income people in America. Susan Thomas serves as the president of the Melville Charitable Trust, where she oversees the trust's grant-making strategy, philanthropic partnerships, and administration. Under Susan's tenure, the trust has provided support for Partnership for Equitable and Resilient Communities, the Housing Narrative Lab, and the Framework for an Equitable COVID-19 Homelessness Response, amongst many others. Formerly the trust program director, Susan led the foundation's housing and racial equity efforts for 5 years, while managing a state and national portfolio of grants supporting solutions to homelessness. Susan was instrumental in the creation of the Fund for Housing and Opportunity, a national nonpartisan cross-sector funder collaborative focused on tackling the housing affordability crisis by supporting advocacy, narrative change work, and efforts to scale effective practices at the intersection of housing, health, economic mobility, and education. While at the trust, Susan was also selected to participate in the Annie E. Casey Foundation's fellowship program targeting leaders working to improve outcomes for children, families, and communities. Prior to joining the trust, Susan was the project officer for Mayor Kasim Reed of Atlanta, where she was responsible for leading Unsheltered No More, an initiative to dramatically reduce street homelessness that placed over 1,000 unhoused men, women, and children into permanent housing. As the former president of Providence Consulting Group, Susan led the design of a statewide foundation to support foster families and co-chaired an effort for the Annie E. Casey Foundation and the Atlanta Housing Authority to create the responsible relocation framework that ensures residents of Hope 6 redevelopment initiatives are treated with dignity. Susan is a former Vice President of Community Investment and Area Development at the United Way of Greater Atlanta. Prior to her nonprofit career, Susan worked for 15 years in the areas of accounting, management consulting, and strategic planning for Fortune 500 companies. Throughout Susan's career, she has raised awareness about the affordable housing crisis and solutions to homelessness. For her tireless efforts on addressing the nation's housing affordability crisis, narrative change, and scaling effective practices at the intersection of housing, NLIHC is honored to present the 2025 Sheila Crowley Housing Justice Award to Susan Thomas.
Y'all know I want to shout ATL, baby. So on behalf of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure to present you with this award for your tireless and trailblazing work in housing and homelessness. Thank you so much.
I'm thinking, where'd you get those pictures from? That's funny. When Diane reached out to me and told me about this award, I was completely caught off guard and blown away and really humbled to the point where I could not control the tears because I've been head down, nosing and nudging that boulder up the hill like we all do. And we're not thinking about who's paying attention, who's watching what we're doing. We're not thinking about recognition. That's not why we do this work. It's hard work. It is sometimes thankless work. It is work that we feel very deeply about. It's work that we fight for people who most of the time don't even know we exist. And we fight against people and systems and organizations and governments that probably do know we exist and wish that we didn't exist and are trying to make us not exist. But we persist, don't we? We keep moving forward. And so I'm honored. The work that we all do, any work I know that I do, is a direct reflection of these people sitting right in the front row. If you have ever worked with or interacted with any of the Melville Charitable Trust staff, you know they are uber smart, they are uber dedicated and uber creative. And so anything that I do is a direct reflection of you and your work. And that is true. And anything that I do, don't you dare start crying. And it's really interesting that I am up here getting the Sheila Crowley Award, because when I first came to the Trust in 2014, I was a senior program officer, and I met Sheila. The National Low Income Housing Coalition was part of my portfolio, and I met Sheila. Where's Sheila? There you are. You terrified me. She was so smart and so successful and so impactful and had so much knowledge. And I remember meeting you and saying, I am not saying a word in her presence because I really didn't know a lot. I knew a little bit about housing, but I really didn't know a lot. And then I was in a meeting with you and Barbara Sard. Oh my God. Who is just as knowledgeable and impactful and self-directed and amazing. And both of you, neither of you could agree on anything. And one was, you were talking about housing trust fund, and Barbara was talking about, no, the silver bullet is housing subsidies. And I'm like, who do I listen to? You know? And I just, I thank you for those conversations. I thank you for allowing me to learn from you. And I thank each and every one of you in this room who I have learned from. Particularly our partners, particularly my colleagues in philanthropy, especially our grantee partners, and especially people in community who live this life every single day, and it is very real to them. I met a woman this evening, and Kimra. Where are you, Kimra? There you are. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But you, it is people like Kimra who, this is why we do this work, who has been houseless, who has been in shelter, who has had debilitating circumstances that threw her into a spiral, and yet she persisted and persists. And yet she is now even chair of her resident organization. Yes. And it's people like you who we learn from every single day. And thank you for allowing us to learn from you and to try and get it right, to do whatever we can to figure out what the needs are and support those needs, figure out what the gaps are and support those gaps. And we can't do it without you. We can't. So thank you. And I just want to thank, in addition to my staff, my family and my sister best friend and my sister, who have supported me unconditionally through some pretty tough stuff. And my daughter is sitting in the front row. And I want to thank my kids, and she's representing my 3 kids who allow me to do this work and to travel and to sometimes not focus. You all know how that is, where you're present, but you're not present because you're thinking about the work. And who were at home, thank God, not wilding out and like, and acting a fool so that I could actually do this work. You are amazing, amazing, and our future. So, thanks. I have been on, I just want to say I've been on sabbatical for the past couple months. And which has been awesome, and I am so ready to get back into the fight with all of you. Thank you.
Remarkable. Thank you. So I have the pleasure and the privilege of introducing NLIC's board member for whom the next award is named after. Lorraine Brown. And she's affectionately known as Mrs. B. The Lorraine Brown Award was created to honor a person living in subsidized housing who has shown dedication to helping tenants, people experiencing homelessness, and their community. And if you know anything about Mrs. B, she doesn't meet a stranger. She has for many years been a vital part of her community. And her community is expansive. It first started in Boston, Massachusetts, New York City, and now Santa Barbara, California. And again, she doesn't meet a stranger because what she does is that she sees people. She sees people, she gets to know them, and she pours into them as well. So Mrs. B, come on up.
Thank you, Renee, for those warm and kind words. I am so excited to be here, but I want to add the reason why I'm here, the reason why I'm a member of the coalition, is because of Mac McCray. Sean Donovan was looking for a focus group with 75 residents throughout the country. And Mac asked me to represent Boston BHA. So here I am. This is the beginning. I am just so proud of being here working with this organization. And when I was told that this award was created for my hard work and leadership as a resident leader, it brought tears to know that people are watching and recognizing the hard work that we do. And this award isn't about me, it's about all of the resident tenant leadership. And especially this evening, we're celebrating the first honoree of that award, and that's Mr. Robert Robinson. He has worked more than 25 years to make a change, to support the community, to end homelessness. And as you walk around this building, attending the forum, you will see him mentoring people, talking to people, helping them make a difference, imparting his information. The sad thing for me, this is a bittersweet, because I'm from Boston, and he's been parading around here in that Yankee hat, okay? All right? So I'm asking all of my fellow Bostonians and Red Sox fans to forgive him and help us celebrate him and all the hard work that he does, but more importantly, how he's changing lives, but he cares. He cares about the community, he cares about people, he cares about you, and he has made a difference. So why don't we look at the video, please? Would you start the video?
The National Low Income Housing Coalition is pleased to present the inaugural Lorraine Brown Tenant Leader Award to Rob Robinson for his dedication to helping tenants, people experiencing homelessness, and their community. Rob Robinson is a formerly homeless community organizer and activist based in New York City. Rob is revered for his steadfast commitment to advocating for the rights and well-being of tenants within the public and assisted housing community. Rob's work focuses on changing people's fundamental relationship to land and housing. Rob works with social movements, including international movements, such as the movement of people affected by dams in Brazil, the landless workers movement in Brazil, the shack dwellers movement in South Africa, and the platform of people affected by mortgages in Spain. Rob is the U.S. and Canada coordinator of the International Alliance of Inhabitants, an organization of 12,000 international members that supports a zero evictions platform. As a longtime member of the U.S. Human Rights Network, Rob's work is framed in international human rights law. In the U.S., Rob works with communities on social issues, including poverty and debt, police violence against the poor, gentrification, and access to broadband. Rob is a regular guest lecturer at the City University of New York Graduate Center. Rob has also lectured at several U.S. Law School Human Rights Institutes, including the University of Miami, Northeastern University of Massachusetts, the University of California at Berkeley, and Harvard University. Rob is currently an adjunct professor of urbanism in the Design and Urban Ecology program at Parsons New School University. For his lived expertise, dedication, and commitment to helping tenants, people experiencing homelessness, and their community, NLIHC is honored to present the inaugural Lorraine Brown Tenant Leader Award to Rob Robinson.
Low-Income Housing Coalition, it is my honor and privilege to present you with the inaugural Lorraine Brown Resident Leadership Award to you, Rob Robinson, for your dedication to helping tenants, people experiencing homelessness in their community, but more importantly about caring. Caring. You're making a difference.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Fee.
you. And I'm so glad you didn't have that cap on. I had to give it that damn. So I'm asking all my fellow Bostonians and Red Sox fans, forgive him, but let's embrace him. Let's celebrate him tonight.
So a big thank you to Ms. Brown. It is an incredible honor to be the first recipient of this award. As you see, I break up through stuff like this. I don't particularly care to talk about myself, but it is an incredible honor, and I'll follow Susan, who was up here prior, saying, you do the work with your head down, and you don't look for recognition. You just do the work because it needs to be done. And I came through something that was difficult for most people. I spent 2.5 years on the streets of Miami through 3 hurricanes, Rita, Katrina, and Wilma. I was on the streets for all of them. I got through that. And I came out of that transformed. I said the world is different than it was explained to me the first half of my life. And I need to express that change to everybody I meet from this point on. And it was the re-education of Rob Robinson. During my time homeless, I spent a lot of times in the library because I would hear this word in Miami called gentrification. Then when I got back to New York and got into a homeless shelter, I'd hear the same thing. So I said, what is this? What is this thing? And I need to educate myself on it. Well, I came up with this theory during the time that I was homeless and it goes something like this. Gentrification leads to displacement, which leads to homelessness, which leads to criminalization. And that statement forever changed my life, and let me explain why. When I first articulated that statement, I was at Columbia University in New York on a panel discussing housing issues. Never done it before. I was full of perspiration, but to my immediate right was a professor by the name of Peter Marcuse, professor emeritus from Columbia University, a lawyer and an urban planner. Next to him was an African-American woman by the name of Brenda Stokely, a union organizer in New York and a founder of the Million Workers March movement. And next to her was Ed Ott, who at the time was the director of the Central Labor Council, an umbrella of all the unions in New York. They had me speak last. I was sweating bullets, man. I was soaking wet. I made my statement, And I put my hand, Peter put his hand on my thigh underneath the table and goes, "Good job." At the time that I made that statement about gentrification, Neil Smith, a distinguished professor of anthropology and geography at the City University of New York, was in the audience, and he stood up and said, "Say that again?" And I said it again, and at the end of that statement, he approached the table and asked me, "How did you come up with that statement?" I said, "Neil, for 2.5 years, I'm on the street. I had nothing else to do but think." And I started to ask myself the question, why does everybody in this situation look like me? What is going on here? And that's when I realized the world is different than it was explained to me. And my mission from that point on was to try to educate people as best I can, but understand what I got through is difficult for other people. When I came out of shelter, I was told, "You got out relatively easy." I was in shelter for 10 months. No, shelter should be 30 days. It should be an emergency situation. So what's going on? Something is wrong with this situation. And then it was the narrative that really pushed my buttons, man. And I'm a former athlete. That's how I hurt my leg. And it was a narrative that you're homeless because you don't want to work. You're homeless because you don't have an education. You're homeless because you have a chemical addiction, or you're homeless because you have a mental illness. I went to work with my dad in the restaurant business when I was 9 years old. I was working in a kitchen in a restaurant at 9 years old. I have a college degree from the University of Maryland, an undergraduate degree, never diagnosed with mental illness, and don't have a chemical or alcohol addiction. So I started saying, you're not going to paint me with that broad brush. And it's my responsibility to find other people that went through the same struggle and get them and encourage them to share their story. So it's been a mission of mine ever since. I was blessed to work with tenant organizing groups in the Bronx. One was called CASA, where I started hearing members of CASA say, "How come we keep getting evicted in housing court?" Okay, let me sit down and let's figure this out, and we're going to do some research together. Then there was a group in Brooklyn called the Crown Heights Tenants Union, where so-called gentrifiers, college students, were moving into this new building where they had to pay a landlord $5,000 a month for rent, so they had to find 4 or 5 roommates so that they can cover the rent. But the Caribbean people that lived there were being forced out at high rent prices, and they were fighting amongst one another. I said, y'all don't need to fight amongst one another. You need to fight the landlord. Put your energy into fighting the landlord. So that was the start of me working with tenant organizing groups. But it's been a blessing to work with these groups around the world, connect those struggles, and I'll end with this story. I love to share stories. The first UN rapporteur was a gentleman by the name of Maloon Kathari. And in 2012, I was at the New School giving a talk on housing and homelessness, and it was from an international perspective. And I mentioned that the struggles that we're going through are just tremendous, and groups have to come together to argue. So Maloon looked at me. He's a former rapporteur at that time, but he's a stately man from India, you know, always wearing the Indian garb. And he looked at me and he said, "Rob, the forces you guys are facing are global in nature. The resistance needs to be global in nature." And he pointed one of his big fingers at me and said, "You need to organize globally." And I took that and ran with it. And from that, I've traveled all over the world to do this work. And it was a blessing of Maloon Kathari. So I want to thank everybody at the National Low Income Housing Coalition. The staff has been wonderful to work with. The board, the interim CEO, and I have an opinion there, but I'll save that for a minute. It's just been a fantastic relationship. It's only been a couple of years that I've worked closely with them, but it's been a fantastic ride, and I appreciate it. And there are other board members in the audience who I've worked with outside of the Low Income Housing Coalition, like Geraldine Collins, who's from New York with me, and we work together. So, Ms. Jerry, bless you. Bless everybody at the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Thank you all for this award. And I'm going to end by saying, remove the interim title from Ms. Willis's name. Stop playing. Peace in the Middle East.
Isn't he a blessing? He's a gift. We are so fortunate to have him in our lives. He makes a difference. He's changing lives. saving lives. We love you, Rob. Here you are, dear. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
What an incredible evening. Oh my goodness, incredible evening. Tonight we have celebrated 4 exceptional individuals. Exceptional. And your daughter looks just like you. She's beautiful, by the way. It's so nice to meet you. Senator Tina Smith, Mac McCrate, Susan Thomas, and Rob Robinson, whose leadership, courage, and unwavering commitment to housing justice inspire us all. Their work is a reminder that real change is possible and that when we stand together, when we organize, when we demand better from our leaders, our policymakers, we can truly make a difference. And we leave here tonight, and as we leave here tonight, let's carry one thing with us. Let's carry this energy forward. Right? Applause is great, but action is better. Right? And that's what we must carry forward with us tonight. So on behalf of the coalition, and thank you, Mac McCrate, because it is a mouthful, the National Low Income Housing Coalition. But on behalf of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, thank you for being a part of this movement. Thank you for your dedication and your passion and your belief in housing justice for all. Together we will be stronger and we will win together. So thank you. Thank you for this evening. And we will continue the celebration downstairs at a reception. So let's just go enjoy and partake and be in community. Thank you all so very much.